Hey everybody, it's a pretty busy week here at BiteSite again, so we're going to be a little bit less formal today. I don't have a script in front of me, I just have a bunch of bullet points that I'm going to talk about. But we're pretty adamant about getting weekly content out, so we're still going to do this. And today we're here to talk about doing actual interviews for your corporate videos. Intro. So last week we talked a little bit about prepping for testimonial videos, for corporate videos, prepping your questions and crafting your message and all that. But once you kind of got all that done and you're ready to go actually shoot the interview, there's a bunch of stuff you can do at the actual interview to make things go really well. Now, we've been doing interviews for several years now, maybe 5-6 years, maybe longer than that. And we've definitely gotten a good habit of getting some great testimonials out of people. We've seen other people do interviews and we've definitely seen some of the mistakes that people make when it comes to interviewing subjects. The really big take-home message here is you just want to get what you want out of your subject in as natural way as possible. In other words, if you don't have to tell them to say something or you don't have to prompt them endlessly to say something, that's really where you want to get to. So how do you do that? Okay, so there's a bunch of things you can do, and here are a couple things that we do when we actually go to interview people. So tip number one, give some verbal prep notes. The first one we do is actually just give them a little bit of a prep, okay? You may do this in the pre-interview, but you may remind them when you sit down to shoot. You want to kind of make them feel a little bit comfortable by just letting them know what to expect. So, we usually tell our clients, okay, I'm going to be talking to you, stare at me, nod at the camera. I'm going to ask some questions, and the more you talk, the better. If you feel like babbling on, that's a good thing. Keep going. We also usually say things like, oh, we're not going to react to you, verbally because we don't want our voice on camera. So it's not that you're not telling an interesting story. We just, we may not react a certain way because we don't want our voice on camera. So, all these little things just to prep them. We also usually tell them how long it'll last. It'll usually be 15-20 minute interview or half an hour interview. And then we may also say, oh, we may stop the camera in the middle just to make sure we have that in the can and then keep rolling after that. So just give them a little bit of an intro to warm up, give them some instructions, It is a little bit of a balance. Sometimes if you give them too many instructions, it may actually be intimidating, but just give them a little bit of what they can expect in the interview. Tip number two, ask more than you need to. You will probably go into an interview with a list of questions. This goes for freelancers as well, this goes for marketers. You'll go in, you'll have a list of questions. I think a really important thing is don't just ask the questions that are on the sheet. Okay, that doesn't mean going for a rapid fire like, oh, where do you work? What's your name? What is the benefit of the product? Things like this. Like they may get a short answer back and you don't want to just rapid fire and get those rapid fire answers. That's not going to give you great testimonials. So, what you want to do is, ask more than that's just on the page. Now this will depend a little bit on your interview subject, but if you're like, do you like using the product? And they're like, yeah, I love using the product. Okay, and then you may ask, okay, well, why do you like using the product? And they may continue to explain why they like using the product. And listen to what they're saying, and they may have some other things to say, and then kind of ask them more about that, go more into detail, and kind of have an interest in what they're saying. Because they may be like, oh, I didn't like using the older system, but I really like using the newer system. So you may say, okay, well, what about the older system that you didn't like? You start to ask a lot more than what's just written on the page. Tip number three, don't interrupt the answers. When you're doing an interview, what you want to do is, as much as possible, just let them talk. Let them talk, let them babble on, because the more you have in the editing room, the better. And sometimes, there's this trick of like, if you just stay silent after they've even finished their answer, they may even get a little uncomfortable and keep talking after that. And that's great, So the more they talk, the great. So don't interrupt their answers. Let them go to a finish and let them go to a completion statement. What's nice about that is they make really nice edit points when they kind of wrap up their own answer. But what you definitely want to stay quiet when you're interviewing somebody, but you don't want to be like completely deadpan. All right, so if you're interviewing somebody and they're giving their answer, you want to react non-verbally to that. So something that I do a lot, for example, is I nod my head, or if they're telling something funny, I smile, or if they tell me something that's really interesting or that I agree with, I'm like, oh, kind of give that non-verbal communication, because it will give them confidence to keep going. If you just kind of stay straight like this, then they might be afraid that they're answering something wrong or that they're doing something wrong, right? You kind of want to encourage them to keep talking, right? So as they're talking, give them good verbal communication that this is good stuff, keep talking, let them know that, right? By just kind of nodding your head or a thumbs up or that's great or whatever, you know, little nods that what they're doing is great. Tip number 4, try to have a conversation. Really, the most important thing you can do in an interview, and I've heard this from other filmmakers and I agree with it wholeheartedly, is you basically want to listen and try to have a conversation with the person. All right, it's not about question, answer, right? Really try to listen to what they're saying, and you even maybe treat it like a little puzzle that you're trying to solve, you know, like try to figure out what they're talking about. Oh, I don't understand that. Can you say that? Can you expand upon that? All these kind of things is really important, right? Like if you kind of have a conversational nature to it, you'll get the most natural answers, which is what I'm talking about. I will say this is a very hard technique, and it's very hard for myself as well. It's hard to kind of listen to what they're saying and at the same time look on your page as to what you have to hit in terms of some of the key points there. So it's definitely a tricky thing there. So it's really important that you're just having a conversation with the person. You may be worried sometimes that, you know, they're not exactly saying the answers that you want, but I tell you, if it's natural and you're having a good conversation and these people genuinely believe in your product or service, that's gonna come out. And so the key is just to really get them to say as much as they can. And the best way to do that is just listen to what they have to say and have a conversation with them. That's really important. Tip number 5, do whatever you can to not script the answer. So I mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the video, but it's really about doing whatever you can to not script what they say. So one of the worst things, in my opinion, that you can do is hand them a script. You know, there are definitely people who get nervous in front of the camera, definitely people who are uncomfortable, and they'll say, oh, can you just tell me what to say? And yes, that may work sometimes, but the reality is it's not gonna sound natural most of the time. And this includes, by the way, a technique that a lot of people use when they're getting started in testimonial video. It's definitely a good way to get started. So I'm not gonna knock this technique, but I will say, as you get more advanced and as you get more practice, this is a technique I actually try to avoid going forward. And that's the technique of trying to get the person to repeat the question in their answer. So what does that sound like? So you may ask the question, what is the best part about using service A? Okay, and can you please repeat the question in your answer? So what they'll say is, the best part about using service A is, and they may literally pause to think about it. And you know what? That may not be natural to their speech and it may come up very stilted. And to be honest, most people's speech don't talk about it that way, right? They don't talk about it like, oh, the best part about using product A. Like they may be more used to saying something like, oh, you know what I really love about using service A is this. Or, you know, when I was first trying out the product, and that's a more natural answer. So if you're just starting out, it's a pretty good technique, but as you get more advanced, I would say avoid feeding them things that they want to say. You just want to kind of get that out naturally. Start to ask questions that are a bit more open-ended, and as well, again, like I said from the beginning, try to have a conversation with the people. All right, so that's pretty much it. So again, really when you go to an interview, yeah, you have to take care of a lot, especially if you're a one-man shooter or a one-person shooter and you are, you know, the only person who's running sound and camera and interview. You have to concentrate on a lot of different things. So, you know, it's very hard to concentrate on a lot of these things. But you know what? The best thing you can do, like I said from the beginning, is have a natural conversation with the person. Be interested in what they're saying and try to get them to say as much as they can. Just get that out and you'll probably have good things in the edit. If you are editing a, you know, 30-second video or a 1-minute video and you get a 5-6 minute interview, you know, chances are 2 to 3 minutes of that is going to be good footage already, you know, and you're going to cut that down to 30 seconds to a minute. So, you know, you don't have to worry about getting the exact wording that you need. There's a lot in the editing room where what you cut down is actually, can actually very much imply the question, you know, without them having literally to say the question and the answer. So there's a lot of things that I think people get worried about in the beginning that you can avoid just by having a good conversation, getting to know the people, getting to know the product, getting to know the service, and really having that in-depth conversation with them. You'll have a great video from that. All right, so that's just a couple of informal thoughts, guys, about how we do our interviews and some things that you might pick up on. If you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comment section below. Be sure to visit our blog for more material like this, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So that's pretty much it. Again, a little bit more informal this week as we are very busy right now. We hope you guys have been enjoying a lot of this material. We are definitely, again, very adamant about putting out a weekly, and we hope you learned a little something today about how to conduct your interviews when you're doing testimonial videos, documentary videos, corporate videos, whatever they may be that involve interviews. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.